choice of words.
You are weak, son of hell. Unsure of yourself.
You let me walk out of here with my money, or I will pull this pin.
Good. There will be someone left to raise them.
Too much iron on your blood.
Would you like to see my mask? They scream and they cry.
So you could just lock me up. Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships.
You know the rules, Hotness. You gotta keep off these bars.
On these bars?
Yeah, those bars.
Black Cat is only rounding out the bottom of this list because she is so ever-changing when it comes to her alignment and so much more complicated of a character to be considered either a hero or a villain, really. But she definitely is a very capable and dangerous criminal, when she needs to be, or when she wants to be, which is why she still makes the cut. When it comes to going up against Black Cat, odds are good you probably don't want to. In fact, she might not even be someone you want as an ally, considering that Black Cat could in fact be ready to double cross you at a moment's notice. Felicia Hardy is definitely one of the most dangerous thieves around when it comes to Marvel Comics, making her one of the publisher's most deadly, sometimes villain. Number 9. Bloodlust. Bloodlust was one of the villainesses that ended up joining the Femme Fatales. The Femme Fatales were an all-female supervillain group who were for a time working alongside Superior's Femizons in a plot to take over the world. She would end up being a mutant who lost her powers on M-Day, but when she did have them, they were very similar to Wolverine and X-23's. Bloodlust, whose real name is Beata Dubiel, actually predates X-23 in terms of her first appearance. Pretty cool facts. She first appeared in the comics in Marvel Comics Presents in 1990. After she lost her powers though, she became a skilled assassin who fought with small, stiletto-like blades. Powered, Bloodlust was believed to be as strong and deadly as Wolverine. Depowered, she was still a skilled enough fighter to give Domino a run for her money. Before we move on to our next number, just a quick reminder to give this video a thumbs up if you are enjoying it. It really does help us out. Number 8. Emma Frost. Emma Frost is only ranking so low on the list because she is a reformed villain now in the comics, but that doesn't mean that she is any less deadly now that she is a hero. As a villain, she managed to swap bodies with Storm and infiltrate the X-Men. As a mutant and a person, Emma is so skilled and so badass that she even manages to use other mutant skills better than even they can. Like when she swapped bodies with Iceman and showed him up. Beyond that though, even just as a woman, not even considering her especially strong diamond form or masterful telepathic powers, Emma is pretty remarkable and dangerous. She's just a powerhouse who knows how to bargain when it comes to business dealings and relishes the power she wields as the White Queen of the Hellfire Trading Company, and formerly the Hellfire Club, because that's what the trading company used to be. But anyways, now the Hellfire Club is a bunch of kids that are villains, so modern time comics. Number 7. Mind Blast. We are going back to the Femme Fatales for a little bit here. This member of the team was actually first introduced in the 90s in Amazing Spider-Man issue 340. She is not only a mutant but also a cyborg. Her mutant powers grant telekinetic abilities which she can use to fly and manipulate other objects. In addition, she also possesses the power of telepathy via her cybernetic enhancements, which grant her telepathic shielding and allow her to create quite convincing psychic illusions. Convincing enough to lure some of the X-Men, including Psylocke, into a trap. Which in my mind, if you're tricking Psylocke with like telepathic illusions, you're pretty good. Number 6. Electra. Electra is one of the most skilled and dangerous women out there, both when she's acting as a villain and when she's acting even as a hero. Like Emma, she also ranks a little bit lower due to the fact that she is currently attempting to prove she can be good and operating under the codename Daredevil. So not super villainous right now. However, part of the appeal with Electra is while an ally to Daredevil, she has never been completely good and in general is considered as more being a villain than a hero. Initially, she didn't possess any powers but was an incredibly skilled fighter, assassin, and ninja. Since being resurrected by the Hand, however, she does have some powers. She can low-key possess other people's minds, using this to track down her targets. It's also been revealed that she has other mental and telepathic abilities and fighting techniques. Gotta love those mental fighting techniques. Mental screams. Ah! This is why I should never get any kind of sonic scream, because I would just sound ridiculous. Not my mutant power. Okay. Number 5. Candra. Candra is part of the Externals, and as such has spent a good amount of her comic book history being a pretty powerful villain. The Externals are immortals who can't be killed, except on the rare occasion when they can, because comics. And because I mean, hey, every character has to have a weakness. For Externals, they can be killed by having another external kill them if their hearts are consumed by said foe. Candra is an immensely powerful telekinetic who also possesses some telepathic abilities, but she is also just deadly because of how ruthless she is and because of all of her connections, because she's so old. She not only is powerful in her own right, but also holds sway over other powerful mutants and allies. By the way, Externals are different from Eternals, in case you were wondering, though both are godlike but in different ways. And both are from Marvel, which is confusing. But yeah, Externals, Eternals. Number 4. Veronica. Queen Veronica is the main antagonist of the Secret Invasion storyline. Disguised as Spider-Woman, she, along with many of her undercover Skrulls, managed to infiltrate and, in secret, invade Earth. Hence the name of the story, Secret Invasion. Veronica is less about killing and more about conquering, but usually when it comes to conquering a planet, you're probably gonna have to break a few eggs. And when I say break a few eggs, I mean kill a few humans. As a Skrull, Veronica is capable of shapeshifting. She also can employ a special Skrull ritual in order to grant herself the memories and powers of those she is impersonating. And of course, as a queen, she also has armies at her beck and call. Or she did, until she was ultimately defeated and killed by one of the most evil characters in Marvel Comics and one of the most deadliest male villains, Norman Osborn. Also, where's my deadly male villain list? Number 3. Meline Prior. Also known as the Goblin Queen. Meline Prior was a pilot in Alaska who won Scott Summers' heart in part because, well, she looked exactly like his thought dead ex-teammate and lover, Jean Grey. Nothing gets someone going like being like, wait, you look like someone that just died that I was in love with. Oh, I'm so into this. I'd be like, I'm so traumatized by you, I definitely don't want to be around you. But hey, to each their own. It was later revealed to comic readers and Maddie herself after she married Scott and had a child with him that she was in fact Jean's clone, created using a piece of the Phoenix Force by Mr. Sinister, as part of a plot to create the perfect mutant, her son, baby Christopher, who'd grow up to become Nathan Summers, aka Cable. Mr. Sinister intended to steal the baby for himself and then destroy Maddie, having no further need for her. That's so rude. When she discovered she was Jean's clone and that Sinister was her creator, she ended up suffering from a mental break that in essence turned her evil. She made a pact with a demon and planned on sacrificing her son and other children in order to gain power, but ended up being stopped by the X-Factor and the X-Men teams. She has been thought dead, and actually dead, a few times in the comics, and made a recent return in 2020's Hellion series. And then we all realized, oh yeah, we totally forgot that Meline Prior is still alive and has been for a while. I'm sorry. I feel bad for her. She returned as a villain once more, and after her return was shortly thereafter defeated and is now presumed dead. But only time will tell if that remains true. Number 2. Harpy. And more specifically, Red Harpy, as you may have noticed from our thumbnail for this video. Harpy is basically the evil version of Betty Ross, Bruce Banner's love interest and ex-wife. Harpy came into being when MODOK used gamma radiation to transform her into a winged monster, who would make a pretty fitting opponent for the Hulk. Her exposure to gamma radiation not only made her the amazingly strong green monster known as the Harpy, but also drove Betty insane, making it easy for MODOK to manipulate her and use her to do his bidding. After becoming Red She-Hulk, we'd later also see an even more horrific version of Harpy when Betty returned as the immortal Red Harpy. Harpy in general is considered to be one of the strongest villains around and is strong enough to take on the Hulk face to face in a fight. One-on-one. She can also heal, fly, and possesses razor-sharp claws and talons. Number 1. Saturnine. That's Magistrix Opal Luna Saturnine to you. Also known as the White Witch, Saturnine is likely one of the most deadly villains on this list, considering just how powerful she is, and just how unpredictable she is. Of course, you still have a chance of getting past her if she happens to be in a particularly good mood. The thing about Saturnine is that she isn't outright evil. She's more of an all-powerful character who becomes a powerful villain simply because she wants to have fun, or because she wants something that others refuse to grant her. She can be both a powerful ally and a powerful enemy, but you definitely do not want her as an enemy. Trust me. Saturnine is a deadly magic user who comes armed with the magic of Otherworld, and as the omniversal guardian and magistrix is basically god level when it comes to the mischief that she is capable of. Number 10. Manbat. The Manbat is not always a villain of Batman's. He has been known to sometimes be an ally as well, but when Dr. Kirk Langstrom is in his Manbat form, he is always horrifying. So horrifying that the closest thing we got to him was in one of Batman's nightmares from Batman v Superman in the DCEU. However, this wasn't really specified to be Manbat specifically. Dr. Langstrom aimed to create a serum to help the deaf and blind, but accidentally made a serum that also transformed anyone who used it into a giant bat-like creature. Both he and his wife suffer from its effects at one point, becoming the Man-Bat and She-Bat respectively. It would be cool to see a horror-style Batman film featuring these two monstrous and sometimes villainous characters. Number 9. Solomon Grundy. While he's appeared in lots of animated films, Solomon Grundy has yet to make his debut in the live-action world of the DCEU. This could be because of his monstrous appearance. Solomon Grundy is a zombie-like villain who sometimes ends up as a hero depending on the circumstances. He has a Frankenstein-type vibe to him as well, which likely makes him too monster-like for the likes of the DCEU. Although there are so many horror-inspired characters and villains in DC Comics that would be cool to see if that genre made its way more into the films. Horror DC, I would watch those movies. Number 8. Hugo Strange. Hugo Strange has a place in the television series Gotham, where he is played by B.D. Wong, and is depicted as the chief of psychiatry at Arkham Asylum. But we have yet to see the insane mad scientist make an appearance in the DC Extended Universe. Because he is often closely tied these days to Arkham Asylum both in the comics and in the Batman video games, it would be kind of hard to introduce this madman who has a tendency to experiment on patients and transform them into monsters into the DCEU without first introducing the famed Asylum. Hugo is a formidable and frightening Batman foe, not just because of how insane he is, but because of how brilliant he is too.
It's a perfect plan. With this machine, I can imagine Batman to be anyone I choose, and these fools will pay a fortune for it.
He was even able to use his smarts and deductive reasoning to uncover Batman's true identity. Number 7. Mr. Mixie Pizyelik. So, Mr. Mixie might not be horrifying to look at. He's kinda silly looking, truth be told, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be scared of him. He has more power than you can possibly imagine, and in fact anything that he can imagine can come to pass, should he will it. The only limit to his reality-altering powers are the limitations of his own imagination. Like Batman's Joker, he has at times claimed to be the ultimate Superman foe. In one story to prove this, he even killed all of Superman's enemies and allies just to prove how evil he was. Mr. Mixie also forced Superman to kill him as well, forcing Superman to break his own moral code. Ooh. Talk about being on Joker's terrifying level of ultimate villainy.
Oh, I don't feel so good, but it's still worth it.
Number 6. James Gordon Jr. He might not be on Mr. Mixie's level in terms of his power set, but James Gordon Jr. is one terrifying and creepy villain. As his name implies, he is related to Commissioner Gordon and is in fact his son. Surprisingly, James is not like his dad and grows up instead to become a psychotic serial killer, exhibiting early warning signs from a young age that there is something very wrong with him. He used to pick apart and torture animals and was suspected as being involved in the disappearance of one of Barbara's friends, Bess Keller, though nothing was ever proven. He ends up returning to Gotham and is revealed to be a full-out serial killer who enjoys torturing his victims to death in Black Mirror. Later on, he ends up joining the Suicide Squad and becomes the team's strategy analyzer. Man, I would not want to work with James Gordon Jr. on the Suicide Squad. I'd be like, ugh. No thanks. Number 5. Papa Midnight. Papa Midnight is a villain to John Constantine for the most part. Sometimes he's an ally, but more often he is not, as the man is obsessed with power and is a pretty bad dude. Papa Midnight grew up in Trenchtown, Jamaica. Born Linton Midnight, from a young age he became inspired by tales of dark magic that his parents had told him. He betrayed a group of slaves, conning them into believing that they would be protected if they rebelled, which led to their deaths, and later went on to sell his sister's soul into demon slavery, so that he could achieve more power for himself through using her soul as a barter chip. selling it to the demons of hell. Ooh. Considering how violent and insidious Papa Midnight is, we likely won't be seeing him in the DCEU, although he has managed to make an appearance in the CW Arrowverse, which is pretty impressive. Number 4. Crib. How does one even make a villain like Crib in the DCEU, just from a visual standpoint? Like, ooh, that'd be a lot of effects, I think. Crib is a member of the Sinestro Corps. She is described as being an alien hag and is 100% something out of a nightmare. Lots of Baba Yaga vibes here as well. However, instead of being associated with eating children, as Baba Yaga sometimes is, Crib's purpose is to kidnap the newly born children of Green Lanterns who are also parents. Crib will even go to the lengths of giving her pregnant victims forced cesareans in order to secure their children. Ugh. She keeps the kidnapped newborns in her hunchback, which looks like a creepy bone crib, and promptly kills the parents of any children whom she has taken away. What's more disturbing is it's never explained why Crib has this compulsion. It's just something she feels inspired to do. I guess she doesn't think Green Lanterns make for great parents? She's like, I'll be a way better parent to these babies with my weird bone crib. Super qualified. Number 3. Dollmaker. Dollmaker has a horrific origin, which makes it hard to introduce him without going full horror film mode. When Barton Mathis was young, he would go camping with his father, who it turns out was a serial killer. While camping, Barton would not only witness his father kill people, but also commit acts of cannibalism. He also saw his father killed when apprehended by the police. Years later, Mathis would grow up to be a gifted but deranged surgeon who was obsessed with using his victims' body parts to craft dolls. He wears a mask made of human skin and was the one who helped Joker to remove his face during the lead up to the death of the family storyline. Number 2. A Black Lantern Corps. One of the most terrifying villain groups, both appearance-wise and in terms of their threat level, is the Black Lantern Corps. Of course, this would be a hard supervillain group to introduce, being that we'd likely need Green Lanterns to be on the scene to help explain, well, just who the Black Lantern Corps are, and why we should care about them. After all, you can't defeat the Black Lantern Corps anyways without the entire emotional spectrum of lanterns assembled to help create that White Lantern power. This threat might also just be too huge and horrific to make an appearance due to the sheer size of their numbers. In the Blackest Night storyline, they were like an overwhelmingly sized zombie apocalypse level of threat, killing heroes and resurrecting them to join their deadly ranks. Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. It might be a little too confusing for the DCEU to introduce the Batman Who Laughs, as that would mean they'd likely have to involve the Dark Multiverse somewhere in their films, and the Dark Multiverse is likely too dark even for DC to make that happen on the big screen. The Batman Who Laughs is an alternate version of Batman who was infected by Joker venom after being pushed too far by the villain, causing him to lash out and kill the Joker, snapping his neck. This caused Batman to become infected, driving him insane and causing him to take down his own world's Justice League and kill his own Bat family, save for Damian Wayne, who he convinced to join him. He's one of the biggest bads in DC's current storyline. Number 10. Court of Owls. The Court of Owls is a villainous and powerful group who seek to exert and wield political influence in order to shape the world as they choose. They are enemies of Batman and often use their group of highly skilled assassins known as Talons to eliminate those who stand in their way. These assassins are also immortal to an extent, as they are often imbued with a metallic alloy known as Electra, which has astounding healing properties and can even reanimate and resurrect dead tissue. The Court of Owls was created by Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder, first appearing as adversaries to Bruce Wayne in the 2011 Batman series in issue number 2. Number 9. Granny Goodness. Her name might not make her sound terrifying, but Granny Goodness is not as sweet as her name makes her out to be. She became a trainer of Darkseid's soldiers after impressing him when she herself was selected to train and become one of his elite hounds. Fans of Kingsman may find the story of how she was trained very familiar. During her training regimen, she was given a dog to train herself, who stayed with her and progressed alongside her. After bonding with the animal, whom she named Mercy, she was later instructed to kill it. Goodness refused and instead killed her trainer. When Darkseid asked her why she had done this, she revealed that Mercy was worth more than her trainer had been to Darkseid, as Goodness had trained the dog to not only be loyal to her, but to Darkseid above her. Darkseid tested the theory by ordering Mercy to kill Goodness and was impressed when he found the dog actually obeyed. Goodness, of course, was forced to kill Mercy, but this act would inspire Darkseid to shape and use Granny Goodness as his most reliable trainer and recruiter of soldiers, with Goodness being responsible for brainwashing those she trained and becoming the most loyal and fearless members of Darkseid's army. Number 8. Black Flash. In the comics, Black Flash acts as a symbol of death, and also sometimes as literal death for the speedsters. You see, the former Flashes and past speedsters have all been too fast for regular death to touch them, and so it seems instead they have their own version. Enter the Black Flash. The Black Flash draws power from the Speed Force like many of the other speedsters we've seen. This being is able to freeze time, but only for those who do not possess potent super speed powers. It resembles death in appearance, looking like a corpse of a zombified version of the Flash. While Black Flash has appeared in the Arrowverse, this Speed Force entity has yet to appear in the DCEU. Number 7. Mandra the Dark Monitor. Mandra is a pretty confusing entity, but also a fairly scary one. Mandra was once, or is, depending on what you believe, Dax Novu. And Dax Novu was once part of the Monitor. Following the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths, the injuries the Monitor had suffered caused it to splinter somewhat, dividing its body and creating other, smaller monitors. Dax Novu was one of these monitors. He eventually realized that the monitors were parasitic beings who were feeding on the energies of the multiverse, slowly consuming and destroying it. He informed the other monitors of this, but was shunned for attempting to share his realization. Dax then became corrupted, turning into a dark monitor known as Mandra. While we might eventually see the Monitor and AntiMonitor make their way into the DCEU films, it's unlikely we'll see this dark monitor pop up anytime soon. Number 6. AntiMonitor. Speaking of monitors, we should also quickly touch on another scary and powerful one, sort of the scary and powerful one, the AntiMonitor. AntiMonitor is a supremely powerful villain who threatened the very existence of the multiverse during the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths. He controlled the antimatter universe, and is hell-bent on ensuring the destruction of all things. So much so that even after AntiMonitor is defeated, Nekron ended up trapping the AntiMonitor's body, and as it was later revealed in Blackest Night, using it as a source of power for the Black Central Power Battery. While we might get a sort of Crisis-inspired storyline in the DCEU with all different alternate universes and timelines from DC in television and film being acknowledged, it's more likely that they'll go the Flashpoint route as opposed to the Crisis on Infinite Earths route. Number 5. Dr. Death. The most recent incarnation of Dr. Death from Prime Earth was only around for 5 issues, so it's not just his horrific story and appearance that will likely bar him from appearing in the DCEU. It's also just that he isn't really one of the main villains. He doesn't have as much clout. However, in the few issues we did see him in, he proved to be a terrifying villain and foe. Dr. Carl Helfern was a brilliant scientist working for Wayne Enterprises on a serum that would strengthen bones, causing them to become more durable instead of breaking when under stress. However, his failed attempts combined with other mental trauma and strain caused him to go insane. He killed his scientific team, injecting them with a failed version of the serum that caused their bones to grow until they were ripped apart. Number 4. The Corinthian. The Corinthian isn't specifically from DC directly itself, but is from an imprint of theirs that used to be known as Vertigo. Well, it's still known as Vertigo, but it no longer exists. It was discontinued, and instead, we got Black Label, which is also an amazing line, but everyone was obviously still sad to see Vertigo go. One of Vertigo's most famous series was Sandman, which also featured some of DC's characters who made cameos throughout. The Corinthian, however, was not one of these, but is a character unique to the world of Sandman. While we are getting a Netflix series for Sandman in 2021, I also think it would be super cool to get some darker toned DC films. Among them, it would be cool to get some Sandman, or at least a Sandman film. Although the Corinthian might be too monstrous to actually make an appearance, even if we did get a Sandman film. He is one of the nightmares that Dream made. At one point, he escapes the dreaming and ventures out in the world, where he becomes a serial killer who pulls out and eats his victims' eyes. He himself has mouths where his eyes should be, and usually wears sunglasses to disguise his monstrous appearance. Ugh. Eating eyes. It allows him to see everything that you've seen, which is, gross still. No, still gross. Number 3. Dr. Destiny. Speaking of Sandman, I want to talk in particular about another horrific villain who appeared there, although this one also exists as a horror and supervillain within the direct DC Comics universe as well. There he wielded a device he'd invented called the Materiopticon. This device was later retconned to be Morpheus's Dreamstone, which his mother gave him, when Dr. D appeared in Sandman. Dr. Destiny was hypnotized by the Justice League to prevent him from dreaming and becoming too powerful. As a result, he was driven insane and ended up in Arkham Asylum, wasting away, becoming a skeletal version of himself. When he escaped, he wreaked havoc at an all-night 24 hours diner where he tortured the patrons and staff before Dream finally caught up with him. Thank goodness, cause that issue, woo, it's crazy. Number 2. Professor Pig. Professor Pig's real name is Laszlo Valentin. He is a former Spiral agent who went insane and became obsessed with curing people of their individualism in order to perfect them. When the crime syndicate temporarily took over Earth, Gotham City was overtaken by the criminals who ruled in Batman's absence. Pick himself used the hospital as his own HQ and worked from there, kidnapping civilians, sedating them, and transforming them with strange, cosmetic, and mutilating procedures, using involuntary patients to create his own horrific Dollatron army. He was created by Grant Morrison and Andy Kubert, and also first appeared in 2011's Batman series. Number 1. Jane Doe. Jane Doe is a serial killer who served time at Arkham Asylum. She appears to not have any skin of her own, appearing to be covered in exposed muscle tissue. Instead, she covets the skin and lives of others. While she doesn't appear to have any specific superpowers, it has been implied that she might be possible of shapeshifting. She often gets to know her victims before killing them and adopting their identities, sometimes even wearing their preserved skin as a suit, instead of simply using makeup to disguise herself. For example, I could be Jane Doe right now and you wouldn't even know. That's how good she is at it. Oh my goodness. Number 10. Sapphire Sticks. Sapphire Sticks was a mutant villain powerful enough to turn Wolverine unconscious with her life-threatening powers. Her abilities allow her to steal the energy and life force of those she makes physical contact with, typically through kissing them. Kind of like Rogue, but without the power and memory absorption, and if she leaned into the harmful elements of her powers a little more. Sapphire did just that, and it is implied that she has been able to stay healthy and young for hundreds of years using her mutant ability. I love when we have like mutant vampirism. I love those powers. It's also believed she is powerful enough that she could use her mutant ability to kill her victims depending on her target's power level and resistance, of course. In the end, she was defeated and killed by Psylocke, who used her powers to avenge all the souls that Sapphire had ever drained, shattering her. Psylocke then used Sapphire's soul energy to rebuild her own body, becoming Betsy once more. Number 9. Knockout. Knockout has only made a few appearances in the comics since her first appearance in the 90s, but she is still a pretty deadly female villain and is super badass. She has worked within both the villainous supergroup of the Femizons and the Femme Fatales. More recently, she was seen once again fighting alongside the Femme Fatales. Knockout is a mutant whose powers are enhanced strength, endurance, and durability. She's a skilled enough fighter that she was able to make quick work of Mutant Rogue when she faced her briefly in Hunt for Wolverine, Mystery in Madripoor. Number 8. Lady Mastermind. We could talk about both for this point, but I've decided to focus on Reagan Wingard, who popped up in Dawn of X, as opposed to Martinique, who is also the daughter of Jason Wingard, aka Mastermind. Mastermind OG. Even when it seems like Reagan has not been strong enough when it comes to her mutant powers to achieve the desired effect on her victims, she has proven skilled and resourceful enough to find a way to push through any mental blocks or willpower that those she targets possess. Her mutant powers allow her to create realistic illusions that in fact can even trick your body into responding to them as if they were real, meaning that her illusions can actually kill you. Yikes. Unlike her father, her powers also do not require her full and devout concentration to work. Lady Mastermind's illusions will persevere even if she goes unconscious, which is pretty powerful. She's basically like way more powerful than her dad. And before we move on to our next spot, time for the most YouTube of moments where I ask you to kindly click that like. Pretty please? Number 7. Yelena Bova. Yelena Bova has always been the rival to Black Widow since way back when she was training in the Red Room Academy. She always aimed to be the best of the best and was driven crazy by her obsession to become the best operative out there. Bova at one point had her face swapped with Natasha's against her will, so that Nat could prove a point to her, basically that being a spy wasn't that great, to help convince her to come over to the good side of things, sort of. Bova will likely play a much less villainous role in the MCU, but in comics she has often been known as an antagonist to Black Widow, and she also has been Black Widow before. Although she is usually manipulated into being a villain, and the most evil thing about her is generally her competitiveness with Natasha, which we've already seen will be addressed in the Black Widow film, just based on the trailer. Bova has also acted as an ally to Natasha on occasion as well, despite the fact that she has lots of reasons to to hate her. So yeah, it depends on what you're reading. She can be a villain, she can sort of be not really a hero, but an ally. She can be a hero in her own way. Number 6. Lady Bullseye. Maki Matsumoto is known for being one of the fastest fighters around. She is both believed to be faster than the Kingpin and Bullseye, who inspired her to become a killer under the same mantle, and Bullseye, who in fact inspired her to become a killer under that same mantle. She was saved by Bullseye when she was a little girl, who the Yakuza intended to sell for their own means. Bullseye, however, was tasked with wiping out those who would be responsible for her and many other victims' sale, and killed them before they could do so. Lady Bullseye is a skilled fighter, trained in wielding many different types of weapons, and proficient in many different kinds of martial arts. Oh, she also is apparently a lawyer, or at least understands law well enough to pose as one. She's both worked with Kingpin and successfully defeated him in combat, which I think is pretty impressive. Kingpin is not an easy person to defeat in a fight. Number 5. Tatana. Tatana is Mary McFerrin, a girl who was known for her small stature and often mocked for it when she was young, and aspired to become something greater than what she felt she was born into. After being offered powers by supervillain Dr. Doom, she was transformed into the powerhouse known as Tatana. Tatana has been shown to be skilled and strong enough to defeat a whole wheelhouse of powerful superheroes, including Luke Cage and Iron Fist, as well as The Thing and Mr. Fantastic. She's also kicked the butt of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, is faster than a speeding bullet and Mjolnir itself, and can take a direct hit from the mythical hammer and be left completely unfazed by it. Now, some of this went on while her powers were boosted, admittedly, but either way, Tatana is not a villain you'd want to face in a fistfight. I would not want to face her in a fistfight because my face would get punched into the next, into the nega zone. I'd be gone. You'd have no face left. Yikes. Number 4. Madam Hydra. Madam Hydra has close ties to quite a few superheroes and other famous villains, and we also for a time have known her under the codename Viper, which is also very important indeed given her obsession with snake venom in addition to other toxins and poisons. Madam Hydra's legal name is Ophelia Sarkinson, and like her codename implies, she is often known for being a ruler of Hydra and as a member of their High Council. She has close ties to Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman, who she has fought against and also sought to re-recruit, Wolverine, whom she was married to, and obviously Captain America, because Hydra. So yeah. As I said, Madam Hydra is fond of poisons, toxins, and venoms, and as such generally employs them for use as weapons through projectiles and even her lipstick. She also possesses near toxin immunity, which she obtained through frequent and carefully measured exposure. I wish that was true. What if you had actually, isn't that kind of how allergies work? Can't you be exposed to them in small amounts and then you can overcome your allergy? I don't know if that's true, but that might be true. It might be science. Don't try that if you're allergic to something and you die. Don't do it though, because I think then it doesn't work. Number 3. Moonstone. Like many of the deadliest and most villainous women in Marvel, Moonstone is really just a woman looking to put herself before others. She's always out to get what she needs first, which generally makes her a villain. But there have been times when Carla Sofin has both posed as a hero and also truly tried to be a hero. She was part of Baron Zemo's Thunderbolts, built out of his Masters of Evil team, and rebranded and disguised as superheroes, following the apparent destruction of most of Earth's heroes by Onslaught. Following this, the Thunderbolts did attempt to truly become heroes under the leadership of Hawkeye, whom Carla started a relationship with. Moonstone was also the Miss Marvel equivalent to Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers team, acting far more villainously once more. She can manipulate gravity, making her super powerful and allowing her to basically augment much of her own abilities, including durability, strength, and speed. She can even turn herself invisible using her gravity manipulation, and she can teleport. Number 2. Mystique. One of the deadliest women out there when it comes to female villains has got to be my girl, Mystique. The best thing about Mystique too is she's really a relatable villain because a lot of times she's kind of just looking out for number 1, herself. Wow, did I just say she's relatable and then I talked about how selfish she was? I think people are all selfish to an extent, which is true. I think we are all selfish at times. And sometimes Mystique also just behaves evilly to look out for those she legitimately cares for, like her now dead wife Destiny and their adopted daughter Rogue, whether or not Rogue actually wants her help or protection. And so that is definitely relatable, I think. Looking out for other people, even sometimes when people are like, I don't want your help, and you're like, well, I'm still gonna help you because I love you. Her shape-shifting powers means that she can pose as pretty much anyone, and her skills in disguise and impersonation help to smooth over these appearances, allowing her to even move and act like those whom she adopts the identity of. Not only that, but Mystique is a skillful fighter and manipulator, so she's not someone you want to get on the bad side of. Trust me, other people have, and they have been backstabbed so many times, their back is basically like a knife block at this point. Yikes. Number 1. Hela. Hela is one of the most deadly villains when she wants to be. Like Mystique, Hela isn't always a villain. She's not inherently evil, but is capable of great evil if it is something that is needed for her to get what she needs or wants. As the ruler of Hell, she is immensely powerful when it comes to her magic and her physical strength as well. She's also a necromancer, being ruler of Hell, though she isn't someone who enjoys torturing the souls over which she rules or manipulating them into doing her bidding, unless, once again, it serves some greater purpose for her. Still, Hela is not someone you want to get on the bad side of, and more recently, as we've seen her ally herself with Thanos, we've seen an even more malevolent side of her. So many deadly women and women who even rule over the dead.
Number 10. Vermin. Edward Whelan from Earth 616 had a pretty average childhood aside from his abusive father, which is actually what led him to the streets and crime. Now, it's not exactly known when, but at some point he got the attention of Baron Zemo and was subjected to many tests that gave him various rat-like traits and abilities. Aside from the obvious rat-like appearance, his strength, stamina, speed, and durability were boosted to superhuman levels, and he also gained the ability to communicate with and command rats that are up to 2 miles away. After gaining these powers, he was sent out to end Captain America. However, he ended up being overpowered by Cap and taken back to S.H.I.E.L.D. for interrogation. He managed to escape fairly quickly though, and since then he has been a pretty big thorn in both Captain America and Spider-Man's sides. However, they have actually used him to their advantage sometimes, as Spidey once used him as bait for Kraven the Hunter. Whelan, since his introduction, has been a part of the Hood's gang and the New Revengers, so he has definitely been in his fair share of crazy fights and done some terrible things, like the time he almost straight up murdered Spider-Man and would have succeeded if he wasn't interrupted. The reason I think he's too scary for the MCU to bring in is because he not only looks utterly terrifying, but thanks to his genetic alterations, his mental capabilities are at subhuman levels, meaning he pretty much works on primal instincts alone. I mean, sure, he's still able to talk, but his reasoning skills are not the best, so he's pretty ruthless. And let's not forget that he also likes to eat people. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1982's Captain America number 270, and let me know if you agree with me. Number 9. One Above All. Residing in the lowest depths of the underworld known as the Below Place, the One Below All is the dark counterpart of the One Above All. It is the source of the mutagenic third form of gamma energy, which allows it to use gamma mutates to manifest itself whenever it feels it's necessary. The One Below All is actually what gave the Hulk his powers in the first place, as the gamma bomb test partially opened the green door that Below was kept behind. Fast forward through some really cool events that you should definitely check out for yourself, and we see the One Below All possess the bodies of Brian Banner as the Devil Hulk, Walter Longkowski as Sasquatch, and the Absorbing Man, which led to the final battle of the Immortal Hulk arc. Revealing its true form, a giant green cloud of crazy gamma energy, the One Below All torments the Hulk so much that Bruce Banner and the Hulk actually separate. However, Absorbing Man was able to reroute the gamma energy the demon was using back into the Hulk's body, and with one powerful thunderclap, the One Below All was stopped, at least this time anyways. One Below All is too terrifying for the MCU in my opinion because he's literally a god, and the reason behind all the gamma radiation and the gamma power being such as the Hulk and Abomination, you know, etc. I mean, who knows? Honestly, if they want to send Mark Ruffalo off with a great story, they could finally give him his own movie trilogy and have this demon as his final battle. I highly doubt it though, so in the meantime, check out the One Below All in his first appearance in 2018's Immortal Hulk number 5. Number 8. Nightmare. This supervillain is basically the Freddy Krueger of the Marvel Universe, and if just knowing that isn't scary enough for you, then buckle up. Classified as a Class 3 demon able to capture a sleeping person's astral form, Nightmare's whole thing is he's able to bring their form into his realm to torture them, and the effects of that can last for hours even after they wake up. Nightmare has been a major pain for many heroes in the Marvel Universe, including Peter Parker and the Hulk, and none more so than Doctor Strange. That poor guy seems to get the biggest and baddest baddies out there, but I guess that's the price you pay when you're the most powerful sorcerer. Strange has made it clear that he makes a regular habit of casting a protection spell before he goes to sleep, so he does not have to go toe-to-toe with this villain. Later in this character's run, we see Nightmare growing stronger by the minute, able to access human minds through the American dream alone, and he caused these people to go on a violent rampage until he was finally stopped by Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D. Skip ahead a little bit more and we actually see the death of this character up against Loki, in which the trickster god used one of Iron Man's automated cars to just straight up flatten Nightmare. So Hey, at least we know he can be killed, right? What makes him so scary to me, and definitely too scary for the MCU, is he's literally the boogeyman. He's capable of wreaking havoc at any given time. His ability to terrorize the mind and attract his victims is in a never-ending horror makes him uniquely scary, and I doubt lovable Disney would ever want to cause nightmares in their viewers. Now, there is a new Doctor Strange coming out in 2022 though, so maybe we'll get to see this villain, or maybe we'll get a mention of them. For now, check him out in his first appearance in 1963's Strange Tales number 10. Number 7, Shumagorath. Older than time itself, Shumagorath is essentially Marvel's take on a Lovecraftian eldritch horror. It is an unknown cosmic entity that used to run Earth before we pesky humans came along, so as you can imagine, Shuma takes offense at this and often comes back to reclaim his old stomping ground. Doctor Strange is more often than not the only one who can actually fight this thing without completely losing his mind in the process, but as cosmic beings are known to do, it can never really be truly killed. It is considered to be the primal power of chaos and the greatest of the old ones, and aside from immeasurable strength, Shumagorath is also capable of creating powerful blasts of mystical energy that can literally wipe out planets. Although its presence is usually unexpected and unwelcome, Doctor Strange did have to summon a small part of it once during Thanos' invasion of Manhattan to wreak havoc on the city and draw attention away from themselves. Outside of our own reality, Shumagorath has invaded many other Earths such as Earth 9411 and 9997. However, it is very rare that they come out on top because there is usually a Doctor Strange or a group of heroes there to put a stop to them. This terrifying villain is a bit too scary for the MCU in my opinion because, well, I mean, just take a look at it. It is literally a massive eyeball and tentacles, just like a real Cthulhu vibe going on, and I'm not really a huge fan. We might end up seeing him in Multiverse of Madness, or even in whatever the third movie will be for Doctor Strange. A Lovecraftian elder god would certainly be a badass final boss for Doctor Strange. Check out Shumagorath for yourself in 1973's Marvel premiere number 10, and let me know in the comments if you think an on-screen version could be on its way. Number 6. Demon Bear. I mean, from the name alone you can probably guess why this one is scary, but just stay with me, okay? Created by a villain with a cursed knife, Demon Bear is a corrupted Apache bear spirit. He haunts the dreams of Danielle Moonstar of the New Mutants because he was actually made from her parents. In her nightmares, he tells her he killed her parents and that she's next, so in a way he's actually linked to her psionic abilities to create illusions, except his illusion is more of a demon. Like a regular old bear, Demon Bear has the vicious tendencies you would expect from a wild animal, however, there is a lot more than meets the eye. Drawing his powers from negative human emotions, Demon Bear can also teleport, transform, and corrupt human souls. He has gone up against other Marvel characters aside from the New Mutants, including Ghost Rider and Warpath. However, it was actually Psylocke who ultimately drove out the demon and saved the spirit bear within. He actually hangs out by her side as a companion now, so I guess he did get to redeem himself in some way. I think this character is way too scary for the MCU because he is literally an all-powerful bear that is capable of tormenting people. And not to mention he feeds off the negative emotions, so he only grows stronger the more the person doubts their abilities around him. That's just too much for one character, and I really can't see Marvel bringing him in anytime soon, so why not check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1983's New Mutants to tide yourself over until we finally get to see him in all his furry glory. Number 5. Gore the God Butcher. Born on a planet with no name, Gore was taught from the very beginning to always trust the gods. However, they never seemed to answer his prayers. Stricken with grief after the loss of his parents, wife, and son, Gore completely gave up hope and renounced his faith from the gods. However, while wandering the desert, he actually encountered the god Null while he was engaged in battle with another god. With confirmation that the gods are real, Gore was needless to say pretty mad, and when the one god asked for help, Gore actually used a piece of Null's symbiote and created the all-black Necro Sword to kill it. From then on, he vowed to take vengeance on all the gods for ignoring his prayers, and thus began his journey as Gore the God Butcher. Wandering around the universe, Gore absorbs the power of every god he comes in contact with, torturing and killing along his warpath. That is until he finally meets the mighty Thor. The God Butcher storyline ranges across eons of time as Gore absorbs the ability to time travel, and ends in an epic conclusion against 3 periods of Thor's life. Young Thor, Avengers era Thor, and obviously Old King Thor. Now I doubt Gore will ever grace the screen in the MCU because he is just way too powerful. Equipped with the Necro Sword he carries around, he has the capability to literally slay anything that comes his way. If he was introduced much earlier on, he would have been a much bigger threat than Thanos. Also, you know, just a man who's lost his faith and has nothing to lose is definitely not someone you want to mess with. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2013's Thor, God of Thunder, number 2. Number 4. Annihilus. Known as the Living Death that walks or the Lord of the Negative Zone, Annihilus is an insect-like creature with some truly insane power. He was exposed to an object called the Cosmic Control Rod, which extended his lifespan and gave him his powers. These powers include continuous rebirth, superhuman levels of strength, speed, durability, and stamina, and flight of course. Obsessed with protecting the rod, he did absolutely everything he could to keep it from everyone else until the Fantastic Four took it away from him. Annihilus has at various times been the ruler of the Negative Zone, controlling its inhabitants via his powerful cosmic control rod. He first encountered the Fantastic Four after Reed Richards discovered how to travel to the Negative Zone from Earth. Over the years, he clashed with the Fantastic Four on many occasions, often with the group foiling his plan to invade Earth. He would later lead an enormous fleet of spaceships from the Negative Zone into the main universe, setting off the Annihilation Wave by destroying a ton of planets. The Armada was opposed by a number of cosmic heroes such as Star-Lord, Drax the Destroyer, and the Silver Surfer, and was thankfully stopped by the cosmic entity Galactus, with Nova killing Annihilus in the process. He was later reborn as an infant in the aftermath of the Annihilation storyline. But other than that, we have seen Annihilus go up against the likes of many other heroes, and he has been a worthy adversary to say the least. Now, I doubt we'll see this character in the MCU anytime soon just due to their immense power and ability to literally broadcast intense fear into the others, the likes of which has even been able to shake the Hulk. It's possible that we'll see them later on once more powerful characters such as Nova and Adam Warlock are introduced, but they are too big a threat. Give their story a read for yourself, starting with 1968's Fantastic Four Annual number 6. Number 3, The Maker. Now, unlike his Earth 616 counterpart, Reed Richards is about 20 years younger, born into a completely normal family, and God, what was it? Oh yeah, he's insane. Now, I'll try not to spoil too much of the story for you because I really think it deserves a read, but I will do my best to give you just the basics. Following an explosion that left Richards presumably dead, the Fantastic Four mourned his loss, but in reality, he's actually alive and well, and he actually set off the explosion himself and was responsible for a ton of other attacks around the city. Convinced that he knows how the world should be run from now on, he is willing to do whatever he thinks is right, regardless of the consequences. Thankfully, he is stopped by a group of heroes and he is flung into the Negative Zone. But it didn't take him too long to get back though, and he easily took over most of Europe. Fast forward a little bit and we see him form the Dark Ultimates, but they were quickly defeated by the power of the Infinity Stones. Teaming up with Cabal of Earth 616, Richards was able to manipulate the Ultimates into prematurely attacking the Earth, and do I got you interested in the character? Good. I'll leave the rest of the story for you to read for yourself. What makes the Maker so terrifying is that he is so intelligent that there is really no way of defeating him, and since he has the ability to literally stretch his brain to make himself even smarter, he is always 10 steps ahead of you no matter what you do and what you think. Of course, we don't even have the regular Mr. Fantastic in the MCU yet, so even if they have been considering integrating this character's introduction is definitely far off. Give the story a read for yourself, starting with 2004's Ultimate Fantastic Four number 1, or feel free to just skip ahead to when he is the Maker by taking a look at 2011's Ultimate Comics Ultimates number 1. Number 2, The Skinless Man. If you were ever wondering why they called Wolverine Weapon X, well, here's your answer. It's not an X, it's actually the Roman numeral for 10. Now with that in mind, meet weapon number 3, the Skinless Man. Harry Prior used to be a barrister during the Cold War, and he was actually very good at his job thanks to his mutant power, elastic and multi-sensory skin. Designated Weapon 3 by the Weapons Plus program that augmented his strength and powers, Pizer went on to do some pretty terrible things, and all of that finally caught up to him when Phantom X shot him, stole his skin, and left him for dead. Now with no skin, Pizer took revenge on Phantom X by cutting off his face, and was later recruited into the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants while he was on the run from that. Once again though, everything seems to catch up to him because in 2013's Uncanny X-Force number 34, he meets an untimely end and he's not really been seen since. I could go into all the other horrific stuff this guy has done in the comics appearances, but do I really need to? It should be plainly obvious that there will never be an MCU version of the Skinless Man out there. He has no skin, and his whole thing is literally putting you in a similar predicament as him. That just seems to me like you've got a formula for a character that will forever be stuck in the pages of a comic book. I also understand that he is prominent in the X-Men universe, which is not necessarily the MCU, but it's fine. I'm definitely not far off when I say that there is no way they would use this character even if they had the rights to him. Check out his story for yourself in his first full appearance in 2012's Uncanny X-Force number 21. And finally, number 1, we have Arcade. Nobody really knows who or what Arcade was before his life of crime. He has given so many different accounts over the years with no evidence to prove any of them. The one that seems the most true is that he killed his father when he was 21 in order to acquire massive amounts of money, and he discovered that he really liked killing, so he became an assassin. However, he soon got really bored with that and decided to use his wealth to construct a death-themed amusement park to kill people. As a skilled killer, Arcade has been tasked with killing many heroes over the years such as Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, and many X-Men as well. But all of his attempts have ended in failure. On his 29th birthday, he learned that he was a huge laughingstock in the villain community, and this made him realize that what he'd been doing is no longer a game, and that winning from this point on is everything. Using his genius-level intellect and his vast fortune, he constructed a new murderland and trapped 16 teen heroes in it for a month, toying with them and prodding them. However, they were eventually freed, and Arcade was last seen tied to the front of the SHIELD helicarrier as a form of torture for everything that he had done. What makes him terrifying to me is that he's all about mind games and toying with people, which basically makes him the Marvel equivalent of Saw. He knows exactly what to do and say to get people to gang up against each other, and he has the knowledge and resources to execute any plan. That is way too much power for one villain to have, especially a movie villain, so I feel like we won't get to see this character on the big screen anytime soon. Number 10, Sticks. Starting off the list today with a pretty terrifying mutant. Jacob Akern was once a homeless man who was approached on the street by a medical researcher to participate in an experiment involving some new pharmaceuticals, and he obviously accepted because the pay was good and there were very few risks. It was revealed that during the trial, the researcher had actually lied about what he was looking into. The trial was about exploring whether the human body could develop an immunity to cancer, so Jacob was injected with a mutated cancer compound. Alongside developing an immunity to the disease, he also became a living cancer cell with the ability to kill organic matter just by touching it. However, his mind was also tainted and he took up the name Styx after the river Styx. Jacob quickly developed an affinity for death, finding it was the only thing that could bring him happiness, and alongside Gerald Stone, the two made a deadly mercenary duo. Now, I highly doubt that Marvel will ever consider bringing this baddie into the MCU because his origins are way too dark for good old Disney, plus he is a ruthless killer who does it for nothing more than just pleasure. So, for now, check him out in comic book form in his first appearance in 1988's Amazing Spider-Man number 309. Number 9, Bullseye. Known as the Mercenary of Mystery, Lester, insert name last year, might not have any powers, but that by no means makes him any less terrifying. Lester has always been a master marksman, and before his mercenary career, he tried his hand at Major League Baseball, but quickly grew bored with it because he was constantly pitching perfect games. However, he quickly found his true calling as a special operative of the United States National Security Agency. Not long after, he became a freelance merc because he found too much joy in killing his targets with his signature killing method: throwing things. Gaining a reputation in New York City, Bullseye was hired to take down Matt Murdock, but ultimately failed every time as he was stopped by, Daredevil. Later on, we see him go up against the likes of the Punisher and Spider-Man and walk away to tell the tale, which is quite the feat for someone with no powers. The worst thing this villain ever did, in my opinion at least, was kill not one, but two of Daredevil's girlfriends, Electra and Karen Page. This led to his demise at the hands of Daredevil, of course, because I can't imagine anyone who wouldn't want revenge after that. I doubt we'll ever see Bullseye in the MCU because 1, we already have a master marksman in the form of Hawkeye, and 2, his methods of torture and his sadistic nature are utterly terrifying, and putting that on the big screen would be too much in my opinion. Check out this character for yourself and let me know what you think, starting with his first appearance in 1976's Daredevil number 131. Number 8, Blackheart. A slightly lesser known villain and utterly terrifying son of the demon Mephisto. Usually depicted as an enemy of Ghost Rider, this all-powerful demon is one of the most powerful in the Marvel Universe and possesses a vast array of magical powers, including telekinesis, telepathy, the ability to travel dimensions, and of course, the ability to project energy blasts out of his hands. Under his father's tutelage, Blackheart explored and learned everything about being evil in nature and has attempted to corrupt many of our favorite heroes, such as Ghost Rider, Spider-Man, and Wolverine. Blackheart is the leader of the Spirits of Vengeance, a group that was created to oppose the Ghost Rider, and with their help he caused some serious damage in the Marvel Universe. Skip ahead a bit and we see Blackheart with some newly acquired demonic powers attempting to take over the Earth by himself. Thankfully, this was stopped by the Avengers and Spider-Man, but not before he could rip out the Falcon's soul and send it to hell. I feel Blackheart is way too scary for the MCU because not only is he the son of Mephisto, a demon so powerful we've only ever heard of him in the MCU, he is the embodiment of evil itself with so many powers making him a ginormous threat. Imagine him getting introduced alongside Mephisto. I mean, any fight against the two would be over in the blink of an eye. Give Blackheart's origin a read for yourself, starting with 1989's Daredevil number 270, and let me know if you think he could ever make it on the big screen one day in the comments below. Number 7, Galactus. Another villain that has been off limits to the MCU for quite some time thanks to his ties to the Fantastic Four, which has made so many fans around the world fear they would never see him on the big screen. Galactus is the sole survivor of the 6th incarnation of the multiverse. Originally, Galactus was a humanoid named Galan, born in the previous incarnation of Earth 616 on the planet Ta. a paradise-like world whose civilization is said to have been the most advanced of any known universes at the time. However, the Sixth Infinity and all its universes were in their final stages of collapse due to the multiversal renewal cycle, being consumed by the abstract entity known as the Black Winter. Fast forward a bit to him becoming a cosmic entity. Galactus possesses almost limitless cosmic power that gives him a vast array of powers that would take me forever to list off for you guys. It is actually ridiculous. With his insatiable hunger for energy and his heralds of Galactus by his side, the almighty being is an almost unstoppable force capable of pretty much anything. Like, seriously, he's not called the Devourer of Worlds and the God of Oblivion for nothing. Do I really need to explain why Galactus probably won't appear in the MCU? I mean, at least anytime soon. The dude eats planets, and as it stands right now, there aren't many heroes in the MCU that can help take down such a big threat. It would be super cool, and I would honestly freak if I ever saw him in a movie one day, but it is so unlikely right now just due to his sheer power and presence. Check out Galactus for yourself in his first appearance in 1966's Fantastic Four number 48. Number 6. Mojo. Just looking at this guy gives me shivers up and down my spine. Mojo is a part of an alien race from a planet known as Mojo World that resides in a pocket dimension known as the Mojoverse. He is a powerful sorcerer whose full power is unknown, and outside of his homeworld of Mojo World, Mojo possesses the ability to create an anti-life energy field that kills any natural organism. He can project concussive blasts, and he can even increase his own power through television ratings. Mojo has been seen manipulating so many characters in the Marvel Comics, including Rachel Summers, who he got to work for him for a while, but once she broke free, he took matters into his own hands and decided to create his own versions of the X-Men to serve under him, and thus the X-Babies were born. Fast forward past a ton of attempts to get his ratings up so he could increase his power, we see a desperate Mojo launch an all-out attack on New York City that separated the X-Men and sent them into intricate recreations of key periods in their lives. Now, I doubt Mojo will make it to the big screen anytime soon because, well, I mean, look at him, I can only imagine how grotesque he would look, but also because of his methods. Mojo is so self-absorbed and wants nothing more than to be powerful and liked, which for him kind of go hand in hand. So he'll do anything and everything and get rid of anyone who stands in his way. Check out Mojo for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1985's Longshot number 3, and see if you agree with why I doubt we'll ever see him in the MCU. Number 5. Dracula. A lot of you are probably looking at your screen right now like, Jack, are you sure you know what you're talking about? Dracula has played a pretty decent role in a lot of Batman stories, but this is Marvel. Well, you might be surprised to find out that Dracula has been a pretty prominent figure in the Marvel Universe for quite some time. Like most iterations, Vlad Dracula is the supreme ruler and the world's most powerful vampire. Driven by lust for power, companionship, and blood, his centuries of undead existence have brought him into a conflict with vampire hunters, other immortals, and, more recently, superpowered heroes. Born in 1430, Dracula didn't become the vampiric overlord until 1459, after he was beaten in battle by the Turkish warlord Tarak, and was taken to Egypt to be healed. However, it was revealed that he actually turned into a vampire. With newfound vampire powers such as superhuman strength, speed, and agility, a regenerative healing factor, hypnotism, and weather manipulation, Dracula wreaked havoc for centuries with few that could oppose him. Fast forward many years to modern times, and we see Dracula go up against the likes of Blade, Johnny Storm, Mephisto, Thor, and even tried twice to make Storm a vampire so she could become his bride. I can't imagine that Disney will ever give the green light for this character because a blood-sucking, all-powerful vampiric villain doesn't really fit with Disney's style. Not to mention that they don't really like to make R-rated movies, and that is the only way this character would work. Appearing for the first time all the way back in 1951 Suspense number 7, why not familiarize yourself with Dracula just a bit more? Number 4. Shadow King. Had to include the Shadow King on this list because he wasn't on the last one and he is too good, or I guess bad, to leave out. He is allegedly a multiversal manifestation of the dark side of the human consciousness that came to be after the first ever nightmare. Operating through Amal Farouk, who acts as his human vessel, the Shadow King is stated to be a true Omega telepath, making him the most powerful telepath on Earth besides Charles Xavier, as he has been shown to overtake some of the most strong-willed characters like Black Panther and Gentle without them even being aware of it. Shadow King was actually the one responsible for the Psy War, when he tricked Psylocke into causing a massive wave of energy that destructed psionic powers across the world. However, he ended up stretching himself a little bit too thin, attempting to link with all the minds on Earth, and was defeated by Psylocke in her new Shadow astral form. This wasn't actually the end for him though, as he was around well after Charles Xavier's death. He even possessed his body for a while. Shadow King has appeared over many Earths in the Marvel Universe, taking a different evil form each time, such as on Earth 6141 where he merged with Professor X becoming Shadow X, or on Earth 1298 where he also took over Charles Xavier and became Onslaught. I can't imagine Marvel ever putting the Shadow King on the big screen because he is far too big a threat. it seems impossible to actually get rid of him without another being whose powers are on par with him, which is actually what happened in the comics when Professor X and Psylocke teamed up. Check out this multi-universal being for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 1979's X-Men number 117. Number 3. The Brood. The insect-like alien race that travels through space with the goal of finding hosts to infest with their spawn. Yuck. Brood societies work similar to how an average bug colony works, with them living in clans or swarms that serve under the Empress Brood. They're a truly savage race that not only enjoy the suffering that they cause others, they also revel in the terror that their infections cause their hosts. They don't technically have any powers, but they are incredibly resistant thanks to their exoskeletons, they have tentacles that are capable of long-range attacks, and they use their razor-sharp teeth and stingers in close combat to deliver either paralyzing or fatal poison. The Brood have been seen on Earth many times throughout Marvel history, going up against the likes of Carol Danvers, Wolverine, Fang, and a large number of the X-Men as well. Sometime after their initial appearance on Earth, a mixed team of X-Men and the Fantastic Four discovered that the Brood Queen and her squadron were leading an attack on Earth, with the first of the bunch arriving in New York City, but thankfully they were stopped rather quickly thanks to a Cerebro-enhanced Emma Frost. They have been seen around since, but I'll let you discover what happened for yourself. Now, I really can't see Marvel bringing this alien race to the MCU as they are anytime soon. Maybe if they weren't partnered with Disney they would be willing, but I can't imagine their parent company would be cool with a bunch of malicious insect-like creatures getting people pregnant Predator style. Check out the Brood's first appearance for yourself in 1982's X-Men number 155. Number 2. Demogoblin. Jason McIndale Jr. had enough of losing against Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, so in their quest for the power that he craved, he ended up following a bunch of demons back to their lair to confront their Dark Lord. Impressed with his efforts and will, the Demon Lord bestowed upon him superhuman abilities through a demonic possession. However, the demon proved to be incompatible and ended up ripping away from his human host and began living separately as the Demogoblin. Determined to destroy all sinners and redeem himself, the Demogoblin went up against the likes of Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, Venom, and even Jacob McIndale Jr. because they were the only ones willing to stand in his way. After the Demogoblin's initial death from a church pillar crushing him, he was resurrected by Carnage using Shriek's body as a new vessel, and dubbed himself the Demogoblin now. Alongside her new BF Carnage, she traveled around with Manwolf to hunt down Misty Knight, and she would have killed Misty Knight if it weren't for Manwolf intervening. In a more recent storyline that takes place after Dark Carnage's death, Demogoblin started calling herself Saint D and basically started her own religion. Considering that Carnage is too scary for the MCU to bring in and that they play such a large role in the Demogoblin story, it makes sense that this character wouldn't be introduced anytime soon. Not to mention that they are totally fine with killing and do whatever they think is necessary. Take a look at this terrifying creature for yourself in their first appearance as the Hobgoblin in 1989's The Spectacular Spider-Man number 147, or feel free to skip ahead to their time as the Demogoblin in 2019's Absolute Carnage Lethal Protectors number 1. Number 1. Null, the Symbiote God. Once an ancient malevolent deity whose existence predates the universe itself, and was originally content to just drift through the endless abyss that existed before time itself. When the Celestials started creating the universe, Null was awakened by the light of creation and was pretty pissed because his kingdom of darkness was pretty much ruined. After killing one of the Celestials, he was cast back into the void once again, and then he created a symbiotic suit of armor out of the darkness he commanded and started his journey across the universe with the goal of getting rid of the other gods for good. The only weakness that Null has is against the light, which refers to the various powers that are wielded by the cosmic entities. Null is the one responsible for the creation of these symbiotes that we're all familiar with, you know, the ones that make up Venom and Carnage. He's the reason we have two of the most terrifying villains in the Marvel Universe, and that alone makes me want to go nowhere near him. Not to mention, he's the one who gave Gore the God Butcher all black Necro Sword. Historically, we've seen Null go up against Silver Surfer and so many gods, coming out on top every time, and then in modern times we have seen him go up against symbiote users like Venom and Spider-Man. I can't imagine we'll get to see Null in the MCU for a couple of reasons, the biggest being that Venom isn't in the MCU, but that's not my whole argument, don't worry. Null is a literal god capable of pretty much anything that he sets his mind to, and he is powerful enough to create symbiotes and beings that can overpower any of the heroes that we've seen both on and off of the big screen. He's too much of a threat right now, but that doesn't mean that I'm not hoping he'll show up one day. Trust me, I really want him to be there. For now, read all about the symbiote god for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 2018's Venom Volume 4, number 3.
10. Amanda Waller. She doesn't even have superpowers, but she is a power all on her own. Nicknamed the Wall, she is a government official who will do anything in the name of national security. I'm talking breaking the rules, killing people, even killing innocent people. She is the commander of Task Force X, aka Suicide Squad, a supervillain team that performs special operations under her command. She has a brilliant tactical mind and is ruthless and disciplined. bending supervillains to her will to get her work done, but she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She once even uncovered Batman's secret identity. She might not be the deadliest DC villain by a pretty wide margin, but there are a whole host of DC villains that would say she's plenty deadly. It's this ability to get superpowered villains to do her dirty work that earns her this spot on our list. Number 9, Catwoman. Coming straight from the heart of Gotham City, Selina Kyle has had a varied origin, but she always ends up becoming Catwoman. In more recent years, she shows up more as a helper to Batman than as an enemy, but she is one of Batman's original villains, and for good reason. She is in peak physical condition and a nimble acrobat as well as master thief, sometimes even using literal cats to help her in her schemes. She might not have super strength or energy manipulation, but she is still a deadly foe, a skilled martial artist, stealth expert, and has considerable skill with weapons, including firearms and swords. Number 8, Cheetah. A much more intimidating cat, Cheetah has had a bit of a legacy, and there are a few different versions of the character. The most recent iteration of Cheetah is Barbara Minerva, who just recently appeared in DC's Wonder Woman 1984. A skilled archaeologist and linguist, she has a keen interest in the lost culture of the Amazons, and she actually helped Wonder Woman learn English when she first came to the United States. Dr. Minerva has made a pact with a god, transforming her into the cheetah with superhuman speed and all the deadly attributes of a feline. She battles with the inner turmoil of resisting her animalistic rage and predatory fury, and was once friends with Wonder Woman, at least in her human form. She was once busted out of jail by the crime syndicate and recruited onto their team. After a while, she led her own team known as the Menagerie, who terrorized New York from their hideout in Central Park. Number 7, Punchline. Also called Alexis K, she is the Joker's new right-hand woman, as Harley has a lot going on right now and the two aren't really on speaking terms. She was a student at Snyder College and encountered the Joker while on a field trip to a TV studio. Joker hijacked the studio and Alexis was forced at gunpoint to act as the newsreader, delivering Joker's message to the citizens of Gotham. After this encounter, she became obsessed, starting a podcast about the Joker and poisoning the people around her to try and get his attention. She eventually kills her college dean, proving herself to the Joker, who taught her how to create a modified form of his Joker venom. Link in the script there. She goes on to help Joker in his war against Batman, eventually having an epic showdown against Harley Quinn and Batman. She wields a couple of daggers and holds her own well against Catwoman and Harley. Number 6, Silver Banshee. First appearing in Action Comics number 595, Silver Banshee is a villain with sonic powers who frequently goes up against Superman. She was once insanely powerful, but has sort of been dumbed down a bit over the years. It's just how it goes with these supervillains sometimes. But in her youth, she was dragged into the Netherworld during a supernatural conflict as family stuff, and granted superpowers by a creature called the Crone. She is initially controlled by the powers like a curse, but later overcomes it with the help of Supergirl. They become fast friends and get to know each other pretty well. The two later hang out in a bar together, and it's totally lit. They're having a great time until her dad, Black Banshee, shows up. Luckily, the two of them are able to defeat Black Banshee together. Silver Banshee is known for her ability to learn language instantly, and more importantly, this crazy power to just make people die by saying their name. It's sort of like the Black Canary's canary cry, except the Banshee version, and it instantly kills you. Number 5, Blackfire. Blackfire is the older sister of Starfire from the Teen Titans. She often appears as an adversary of the Titans and is extremely powerful, outmatching the already astounding Starfire in battle. She can absorb ultraviolet radiation and transform it into deadly bolts she calls Black Bolts, and can even change radiation into energy, giving her superhuman strength and endurance. She is especially powerful, capable of interstellar travel and flight in space. Kind of the same thing. She appears in Red Hood and the Outlaws number 11, where she fights alongside her sister and takes down the Blight after they capture Roy Harper. It's an epic team up and a great reunion for the two sisters. Number 4, Mary, Queen of Blood. Mary Seward is the Queen of Blood, appearing in House of Mystery number 290 in 1981. She once had a lover named Andrew Bennett, a decorated nobleman who was bitten and turned into a vampire. Mary begged Andrew to bite her as well, hoping that the two could spend eternity together. However, Andrew resists the vampiric bloodlust while Mary embraces it and becomes a ruthless killer. She forms a cult called the Blood Red Moon, and Andrew hunts her across the centuries trying to stop her. She once turned an entire temple of monks into vampires, but they rather impressively resist the bloodlust through mindfulness and meditation. She has a crazy host of powerful abilities, including psychokinesis, transformation, regeneration, superhuman strength, not to mention immortality. As long as she has a steady supply of blood, she is extremely powerful, and I'm sure it's easy for her to get more. Number 3, Killer Frost. Killer Frost is just a classic deadly female villain, an icy-hearted femme fatale who will literally suck the life out of you in a heartless attack. There have been multiple iterations of Frost, always iconic and always super powerful, having once even sold her soul to become more powerful. She has been kidnapped and forced to work on the Suicide Squad, and once even worked alongside Batman. Caitlin Snow is the newest Frost, a scientist who is tricked by Hive and made to die in a staged accident, but she instead survives and gains her ice-based powers. She is not made of ice, but instead generates organic ice-like cells that make up her entire genetic makeup. She is a heat vampire, absorbing the body heat of others to kill them. Number 2, Enchantress. Also known as June Moon, Enchantress gained her powers from an immensely powerful being and almost immediately winds up battling against Supergirl. She later joins the Suicide Squad as Amanda Waller agrees to help her control her evil Enchantress side. She can manipulate energy, heal, and even teleport. She once took on Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Superman all at once, and has defeated other villains as well. Her powers have gotten kind of erratic and unpredictable since June Moon and Enchantress became separated from one another, but she has still demonstrated some impressive raw power in her villainous career. She is capable of flight, necromancy, and possession, elemental control, and even resurrection, but only if the corpse is fresh. If it's not though, she can always use the necromancy. Number 1, Evil Supergirl. Lex Luthor had an evil scheme that basically caused all of this. He created a black kryptonite energy ray, which he used on Supergirl, hoping to corrupt her. Instead though, the ray generated a second dark version of Supergirl. This dark version had similar memories and experiences, but believed that she was sent to Earth to kill Superman. And as you can imagine, she's crazy powerful. She goes on a rampage using her Kryptonian powers, causing tons of damage, and even taking down Black Canary and the Flash before finally facing off in an epic battle with Superman and Wonder Woman. Evil Supergirl is likely one of the most powerful villains ever, and it's actually Wonder Woman that brings her down in the end, catching both versions of Supergirl in her lasso and merging them together back into one.
Number 10, the Fury. Generally depicted as an enemy of Captain Britain and the X-Men, the Fury is a deadly android built by the reality-manipulating psychic Mad Jim Jaspers of the parallel timeline of Earth 238 to destroy all superhumans but himself. Since it's not a living being, it doesn't possess any superpowers. However, it's ridiculously strong, can generate lethal energy blasts, is capable of adapting to any situation, and can regenerate its mechanical body at will. Most of the Fury's enemies on Earth 238 were based on British comic book characters from the 1950s to the 1970s. After succeeding in its mission, the Fury was deactivated until Captain Britain and his elf sidekick Jackdaw were sent to Earth 238 by the Captain's mythic mentor Merlin. The status crew and forces working for the country's oppressive regime reactivate the Fury and send it to kill the hero, and it murdered Jackdaw and then killed Captain Britain. After a little bit, it traveled to Earth 616 and continued killing many of Captain Britain's allies until it was eventually taken down and buried in the cave system of Captain Britain's mansion, where it absorbed the circuitry of the computer and repaired itself. There's a bit more to its story, but hey, I don't want to spoil it all for you guys, so give it a read for yourself, starting with 1982's Marvel Superheroes UK, number 387. Number 9, Sugar Man. One of the most terrifying looking villains on our list today is Sugar Man, the villain with a terrifyingly powerful tongue, size and mass alteration abilities, and highly advanced regeneration ability. Originally, he ran the human work camps in the Pacific Northwest and was a geneticist with a lab around Niagara Falls, where he regularly tormented his captives. Magneto needed a mutant with chrono variant powers, aka time traveling powers, in order to go back in time to restore reality's proper order before Charles Xavier's death, and Ileana Rasputin was revealed to be one of the few around, so Colossus and Generation Next were sent to retrieve her. Sugar Man held up pretty well against them, only almost dying like 3 times. He eventually hitched a ride to the Apocalypse Citadel and was transported from his native Earth of 295 to Earth 616, where he operated with Genosha to help the Magistrates create a mutant captive army that could take over the world. So not only is he scary looking, he is also scary smart. Can't imagine them sticking him into any X-Men movie, let alone an MCU movie anytime soon, so in the meantime, check him out in comic form, starting with his first appearance in 1995's Generation Next, number 2. Number 8, Supergiant. Although the other members of the Black Order made an appearance in the MCU, one member was unfortunately shafted, and that is none other than Supergiant, the mentally unstable omnipath and telepathic parasite who seeks out intellect and devours it. In the comics, Supergiant had absolutely no issues with taking out the Jean Grey School and the X-Men associated with it. Later on, when the Black Order seized Wakanda, Supergiant was left in control of Black Bolt, whom she would mentally order to activate the bombs the Illuminati hid in Wakanda's necropolis. Upon activating the bomb, Supergiant was faced by Maximus, who had the trigger, and Maximus triggered the bomb, but also used Lockjaw to transport Supergiant along with the bomb to a distant uninhabited planet where she perished in the explosion of the bomb, although she did later return as a mental projection and even attempted to take over the body of Captain Glory so she could continue wreaking havoc on the world. Thankfully though, she was eventually taken out for good by the Lethal Legion while trying to take over Thor's mind. Check her out for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 2013's Infinity, number 1. Number 7, Kull Borson. Born the older brother of Odin, Kull Borson, aka Serpent, is the god of fear in the Asgardian world. He possesses all the conventional attributes of an Asgardian god. However, as the son of Bor, many of these attributes are significantly better than those possessed by the majority of his race. He possesses enough superhuman strength to shatter Captain America's shield with his bare hands, has the ability to manipulate magic as he's able to teletransport, revive the dead, and transform himself into a giant serpent. And as the god of fear, he could consume the fear of other people to empower himself, making him stronger and even younger in the process. During the Fear Itself storyline, Kull created and gathered his worthy in order to spread chaos across the entire world. This group being made up of Juggernaut as Kurth, Breaker of Stone, Hulk as Null, Breaker of Worlds, Atuma as Nurkod, Breaker of Oceans, Titania as Skirn, Breaker of Men, Grey Gargoyle as Mok, Breaker of Faith, Absorbing Man as Greythoth, Breaker of Wills, and Thing as Angrier, Breaker of Souls. Thor was eventually able to kill him in the storyline after some intense battles, but not without losing his own life in the process. Obviously though, both characters do come back to life just a little bit later on. However, Kull meets his permanent end in 2019's Thor Volume 5 number 13. Want to know what led up to that point? Well, check out this whole story for yourself, starting with 2011's Fear Itself, number 1. Number 6, Cassandra Nova. This powerful telepath is certainly not well known among general audiences and has actually never been introduced in any of the movies whatsoever. Cassandra Nova is essentially a member of a parasitic race of psychic beings and attaches herself to Charles Xavier while he's still in the womb. She absorbed the darkest parts of his mind and basically became Charles' twin sister. Though the doctors pronounced her stillborn, Cassandra in fact survived and spent the next few decades as a growing mass of cells in a sewer wall, building a new body for herself and planning her revenge on her brother. Since she copied the DNA of Charles, this means that she is able to access the full spectrum of his powers, making her one of, if not the strongest telepath, because this means she has all the powers of Charles Xavier, meaning the ones that he has had and the ones that he might receive in the future as a result of any latent mutations. Overall, she is a dangerous enemy of the X-Men, having made an army of Sentinels murder over 16 million mutants on the island of Genosha, and that by itself is a reason she is on this list today. Check her out for yourself in 2001's New X-Men number 144, and let me know your thoughts on her in the comments below. Number 5, Vox. Maximus Boltagon, aka Vox, is an inhuman and son to two of the top geneticists at Datilin. Subjected to the DNA-altering Terrigen Mist when he was an infant, Maximus peculiarly showed no outward sign of any mutagenic change. Although as he matured, he hid his developing psionic powers from the community, but was less successful in disguising his antisocial tendencies. His mental powers granted by the mutagenic effects of the Terrigen Mist give him the ability to numb, override, and even get rid of a person's mind. He has the ability to induce short-term amnesia in others and the ability to exchange his consciousness with another person as well. He does seem to have a limited range though, but it is made up through variability, as he's only able to affect minds in a certain radius and only create one effect at a time. His influence generally functions while Maximus concentrates, but he has been known to leave long buried influences in his subjects as well, which he can trigger by voice command, causing a subject to carry out embedded commands, forget something, or even remember something. In the recent Death of the Inhuman storyline, Maximus is at New Arctillon when the Kree begin their campaign to get the Inhumans to join them or die. The superhuman Vox and the Kree with him are on New Arctillon and begin murdering every Inhuman they come across, old or new. Armed with all the Inhumans' abilities and no humanity whatsoever, Vox easily cuts his prey down with his powers or with his literal energy scythe. Even Maximus cannot defeat Vox as he quickly loses an arm for even making the attempt to try and do so. It was later revealed that the Kree took his body and placed it in a Vox costume where he was brainwashed to serve the Kree. When Beta Ray Bill took down Vox during his confrontation with Black Bolt, it broke the brainwashing on Maximus as something on Vox's costume teleported her way while also killing Maximus in the process. Number 4, Mad Jim Jaspers. Mentioned briefly at the beginning of our list when I was talking about the Fury, Mad Jim Jaspers is not a super well-known villain, but just because they're not well-known doesn't mean that they're not scary. He has a truly terrifying power, which is the ability to shift and twist reality however he sees fit, making him without a doubt one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe, having powers beyond the cosmic entities. Couple that with the fact that he's, well, mad, and you get something out of a David Lynch nightmare that you do not want to mess with. Jaspers regularly twists the world into the nightmare hellscape he believes reality to be, and this, as you can imagine, leads to some imaginative and horrifying scenarios. According to Merlin, the 616 Jaspers is just way too powerful, stating this version of Jaspers is too powerful, too dangerous. His 238 counterpart could at least be halted even if it meant destroying his entire continuum. This one, however, is not so easily containable, and if he can't be defeated, then the Omniverse shall fall into chaos and a new hostile god shall play dice with the matter. Now, if you want to know more about the character, then check him out in his first appearance in 1983's Daredevil, number 9. Number 3, Mr. Sinister. Nathaniel Essex is the supervillain commonly associated with the X-Men known as Mr. Sinister. He is an incredibly ruthless and sadistic man who has no problems doing whatever he deems necessary to get what he wants, including, you know, mass murder. Thanks to having his genetics altered by Apocalypse, he was transformed from a regular old human into a superhuman capable of some ridiculous things like shapeshifting, telepathy, telekinesis, concussive blasts, and can't forget that he also has super strength, speed, stamina, durability, and reflexes. Sinister is also a scientific genius with expertise in the field of biology, genetics, cloning, physics, and engineering. The character is a master manipulator and planner with decades of genetic research at his command. He goes to great lengths to preserve his powers and personality through elaborate technological means, such as conditioning certain children to be his quote-unquote host in the event of his future death. Over the course of his time in comics, we have seen him go up against the likes of so many heroes and come out relatively unscathed, and that is why he is so high up on our list today. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1987's Uncanny X-Men number 221. Number 2, Chaos King. Amatsu Mikabashi is none other than the Chaos King, the god of evil, chaos, and the stars to the followers of the Shinto religion in Japan. He possessed the conventional abilities of one of the kami, the order of Japanese deities, such as superhuman strength, speed, durability, agility, endurance, and recuperative abilities, as well as high ability to wield some form of potent Japanese magic, a brand of sorcery that seems especially effective against the Olympian deities. His physical strength, at least in his main incarnation, is considerably less to that of like Zeus or Izanagi, and is roughly equal to that of an average kami, but Mikabashi can project energy on a scale at least rivaling that of Zeus and Izanagi as well. Like the Asgardians, the Japanese gods are extremely long-lived but not truly immortal like the Olympians, as they tend to age at an extremely low rate upon reaching adulthood, and are 3 times denser than normal human beings. During the events of the Chaos War, we catch a glimpse of Chaos King teamed up with Necra and none other than the Grim Reaper and Abomination to fight against the other gods. He even goes as far as unleashing Carrion Crow, Eater of the Dead, to antagonize the revived X-Men members. All in all, he is brutal in terms of methods and isn't too easy on the eyes either, so check him out for yourself, starting with 2006's Thor Blood Oath number 6. And number 1, the First Firmament. At the very beginning of it all, there was only one universe, the First Firmament. For a long time, the First Firmament was the sole being in creation until its loneliness became unbearable and it decided to create the first life in creation to give itself companions as well as servants, which it eventually came to regret. It created 2 specific types. Black servants dutifully obeyed and worshipped their creator, and then the multicolored ones had completely different values and desires, as they wanted a dynamic, diverse, and continually evolving reality, where beings lived, learned, reproduced, aged, and died in order to slowly improve themselves through evolution. Unfortunately for them, when the creations argued with their creator, they were destroyed completely. Now, one can only imagine what might happen if an entire universe were to turn evil, but this is the answer to that question, since the First Firmament became the evil that many people worry about. Just imagine an evil sentient galaxy that could destroy pretty much anything with just a gesture. Absolutely terrifying and way too much for the MCU. Check it out for yourself in its first full appearance in 2017's Ultimates 2, Volume 2, Number 5.
Number 10. Malice. From Marvel. There are multiple characters who have held this name. The first two Malices were Black Panther villains attached to Killmonger, but the version I'm going with is Sue Storm's evil split personality. Sue Storm is the fourth incarnation of Malice, the third was a Ghost Rider villain. So Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, was manipulated by the Psycho Man into having the negative aspects of her personality manifest. You know, the bitterness of the years of neglect from Reed, and also her miscarriage. At the time, her second child, that pregnancy had not come to fruition. This would be later semi-retcon and they would succeed in having a second child, though it would be difficult, and this would be Valeria. However, Sue was very hurt by all the things that were going on. Slowly she began to change. Her powers were upped and she began to use them more offensively. She also changed her name from the Invisible Girl to the Invisible Woman. She also got a sexier costume, and well, the people weren't having it because she was a mom after all, and moms aren't allowed to be sexy. Marvel is a no MILF zone, or rather tasteful MILFs. Honestly, part of the Malice explanation came in response to her costume. A boob window, cleavage at all? A lot of this could have been explained as her anger and her grief, but no. Also, Reed slapped her across the face after playing into her insecurities that he is well aware of, but at the time was just choosing not to be a better husband. This is to snap her out of it. Now, Sue Storm is attractive no matter what, but Malice had all that evil going on. Sue still fights her in her subconscious sometimes, but we aren't getting that boob window back. Number 9. Lady Deathstrike. Do you like your ladies enhanced, murderous, out to kill? Then introducing Lady Deathstrike. She first appeared as Deathstrike in Alpha Flight number 33 back in 1986. Before that, her first appearance just as a character was in Daredevil number 197 back in 1983. Her original name was Yuriko, and she hates Wolverine, and her hatred of him drove her to become Deathstrike. Though this was after she had first tried to take him down. She was enhanced on Mojo World actually. Deathstrike has a dangerous thing going on, but still with plenty of cleavage. She'll kill you, but you'll get a nice view while it happens, and that's what matters. In all seriousness, she's a cool character, and the design is cool. The giant fingers, the samurai inspired garb, it's a look. Some say she's just a female Wolverine, but to them I say, how dare you? That's X-23. She's managed to find her way into adaptation, and her vengeance and rage will make her a character remembered for years to come. Number 8. Nocturna. So Nocturna had two origins, one pre-crisis and one post. The pre-crisis is from Batman number 363 back in 1983, and post-crisis is from Robin number 100 in 2002. Both versions dummy thick. One of her aliases is Mistress of the Night. She's a very blink and you'll miss her type of character. I mean, when you come back as a villain for Tim Drake in his solo outing, that's bound to happen. She was actually supposed to be adapted into Batman the Animated Series, the seminal series from the 90s. However, she proved too risque. This was because she was going to be a vampire. They approved of the hot model, that's a quote, but the bloodletting and showing blood and showing Batman lusting for blood because he was going to turn to a vampire briefly in the episode, that was too far. It was a kids show, and at the time showing blood was still a taboo. Now they show blood all the time. Still, no matter the era, one of the focuses was always on how hot she was. She was also friends with spoiler Stephanie Brown. That's not saying that is a spoiler, that was her name. She's not really a huge focus, but come on, people want their thirst. Little vampire pun for you. Number 7. Scandal Savage, a recent addition. She first debuted in Villains United number 1 in 2005, created for the supervillain team The Secret Six. She's the daughter of Vandal Savage and some Brazilian woman, and she's a lesbian. I'm not just bringing that up to bring it up. Her creator Gail Simone brings it up all the time. And in 2005, it was a big deal. She has the deadly skill set, the costume with the crop top, making it fashionable for this era, the cleavage, the peekaboo mask. Scandal was an interesting character. The whole Secret Six was a fun comic that brought out the best in its characters. It gave the world a credible Catman again, and a cool Deadshot. It was going places, but it was sadly swallowed up by the New 52 reboot, and Scandal kind of fell by the wayside. Gail Simone got swept up to write Batgirl and retconned her legs, which she was long salty about, then moved on. Scandal, easily collectible in a few trades. Number 6. Cheetah. Arguably the most well-known Wonder Woman baddie, Cheetah has something for all the furries out there. I'll take this list places. You want hot, I'll give you all the hot. Kelly is scripting hot men right now. I believe I heard her call Wolverine a tiny knuckle of muscle. Now what you may not know is that there have actually been 4 Cheetahs. We're going to be looking at the 3rd Cheetah, Barbara Ann Minerva. She debuted in Wonder Woman Volume 2 number 7 back in 1987. Before that, Cheetah was just a woman in a costume. Amateurs. Her origin is actually pretty tragic. She was an archaeologist who took part in an ancient ritual as she believed she would gain immortality. It involved a female cheetah guardian. She drank human blood, ingested the berries of the plant god, Uzkarta. Or is Cartaga, which I had to pause to say, it's quite the name. But here's the thing, the ritual was supposed to be done with a virgin, and well, she wasn't one. This resulted in her part transforming in a way that was part curse and part blessing. So she was left in pain in her human form and with a crazed bloodlust in her cheetah form. So she was doomed to wander in this way. Obviously, she chooses her cheetah form far more often because she doesn't want to be in pain. My question has always been, where are her nipples? I mean, I know why they're not there, censorship, but it was always weird to me that you don't see the nipples. I mean, on furred animals you can see them. They should be there. Or they should just give her a jumpsuit. Oh look, they gave her a jumpsuit. Also, there is a male cheetah, but this is not hot male villains. No, get out of here, Sebastian. Number 5, Silver Sable. She first debuted in The Amazing Spider-Man number 265 back in 1985. She is not Black Cat. Sometimes people mix the two up because they both have white hair and they just assume that somebody got a costume change. No. Now she can be an anti-hero, but is most often a bit more on the villain side. Do you like the 80s? Do you like headbands? Do you like a woman who shoots first and asks questions later as long as you're not the one being shot? Then get excited. Silver Sable actually has an annual diplomatic dinner with Dr. Doom. Their nations border each other. Hers is Simcaria. She does all that she does with no superpowers. She hunts Nazis, but will also kill for money. She was inspired by a pack of Safari cards that the editor Tom DeFalco bought, so her team was called the Wild Pack. She was popular enough for a time to be adapted into the 90s animated Spider-Man series, but over time she's kind of faded. We have other hot lady mercenaries, but you needed to know about Silver Sable. You're welcome. Number 4, Typhoid Mary. She is genuinely an awful villainess. She first debuted as Typhoid Mary in Daredevil number 254 back in 1988. She's kinda sympathetic, we'll get to it. She started as a Daredevil villain and would expand to become a Spider-Man and Deadpool one as well. She raped Deadpool, never forget. I certainly haven't. She was a former lover of the Daredevil and has some low-level psionic abilities. Typhoid Mary is genuinely unstable, and she was actually created accidentally by the Daredevil when he was trying to take down a brothel and was stunned when the woman in it attacked him. He accidentally knocked her out of a window, and so she vowed never to let a man hurt her again. In fact, she would hurt them first. Typhoid Mary has ranged and has multiple personalities, with the Typhoid one being one of the most aggressive. She also kills domestic abusers, only the men though. Listen, she's genuinely bad, but they always draw her super hot, so hottest. I mean, when I did Scary Aliens, you all didn't want to believe Starfire was scary because she was too hot. Well, Typhoid Mary is hot too. Are you gonna take the risk because she's got a two-face thing going on? Just so aggressive in this video. I'm really passionate about evil hot women. Number 3, Giganta. Are you all here for the Vor? The giant lady? Do you like a lot of women that you have to look up to even to see her waist? Well then, here comes Giganta. She first debuted in Wonder Woman Volume 1 number 9 back in 1944 and was created by William Moulton Marston, so you know that there was some level of kink involved. The man liked what he liked and wanted you to know about it. She was an ape who was mutated into a beautiful and giant woman. This was her first origin. Her newer origin is a bit more complicated but still involved a gorilla and mind transference. Here she eventually transfers herself into a strong woman named Olga, who has size-changing abilities. People are into Giganta. She's been adapted numerous times. I found her through the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. Number 2, Nightshade. She first appeared in Captain America number 164 back in 1973 and used to be called Dr. Nightshade and Deadly Nightshade. Discovering as a young girl that she has a knack for science, she decided to use it for evil. She focuses on creating a werewolf army. Yes. And you know what she's got going on? Pheromones. She could use them to control men through science. She forced Captain America to fight Falcon, and also just help her in general, but he resisted real hard. She has also created a serum to turn men into women, and as always she is on that werewolf army game. Capwolf. She's a mad scientist who loves bikinis and thigh-high boots. She has more of a costume now, but she's still out there manipulating to get what she wants. These old panels, I love them so much. Exploitative? Hell yeah. The confidence to wear that? Envious. She can turn a man into a werewolf and then just head straight to the beach. That's convenience. And number 1, Star Sapphire. I'm talking about Carol Ferris. Again, there have been multiple Star Sapphires, but we need Hal Jordan's waifu for lifeu. Make this the cringiest video of all time. She first appears as Star Sapphire in Green Lantern Volume 2 number 16 back in 1962. At first she is chosen by the Zamorans, enemies of the Guardians, because they want to prove that men are inferior. Her costume evolved into one of the deepest V-necks of all time, and got even more hilarious when the emotion spectrum started and every pink, or I'm sorry, violet lantern had that costume and they were all ladies. They try to explain this as, oh, anyone can join, but most men are not worthy. Okay, sure Jan. I demand Kyle in this outfit. The world needs it. Officially, not just as fan art. Look it up. It exists. Star Sapphire is a hero now for the most part, but for a while she was a recurring villain and the persona was buried deep within Carol's mind. These costumes, they're a look. Charting their evolution is a trip.